Back in our first lesson, do you remember the main method and the variable args of type string array? We never really discussed what an array is, did we? Now that you have a solid grounding in primitive types and object references, we can discuss arrays. Let's jump right in. In Java, an array is a data structure used to store a fixed size sequence of elements. Arrays are great when you need to store a list of things, all of the same type. To declare an array in Java, you specify the data type of the array elements, followed by empty square brackets, and then the name of the array variable. For example, to declare an array of integers, we would type int, open and close brackets, our variable name, in this case nums, and a semicolon to complete our statement. At this point, the variable nums is a reference variable to an array of integers that is initially null, since no array has actually been created yet. To initialize the array and allocate memory for it, we use the keyword new. For example, nums equal new, our data type int, in brackets the number 4 and a semicolon. This code creates an array called nums of type int and of size 4, meaning it can store 4 integer values. When this form is used to instantiate an array, all elements are set to the default value for the specified type. In this case, all the values of our array will be 0, since that's the default type for integer. To access elements of the nums array, use an index number in brackets. Each element is indexed starting at 0. Nums sub 0 to access the first element, nums sub 1 to access the second, and then num sub 2 and num sub 3 to access the remainder. Recall our coffee cup example from the past few lessons. When we declare an array, we create a variable that can reference arrays of a specific type, in our example, an array of ints. When we initialize the array, memory is allocated, and our variable now references the memory location at the start of the array. We use indexes to refer to the individual elements of the array at this point. Arrays are like trays of coffee cups when you need somewhere to store your cups, or in our case, our data. When we initialize our array, we specify the index was 4. Our array index will always be from 0 to 1 less than the size of the array, so 0 to 3 in this example. Every element of an array is a variable, accessed with its index position. Each element of the array is of the same type. This can be the primitive types that we've seen before: int, long, byte, short, boolean, char, double, or float. Or it can be a reference variable. Think about the car class we saw earlier, or any of the thousands of classes available from the Java Standard Library. In earlier lessons, we saw how assignment is done for primitives and object references. The same is true with arrays. Anything that can be assigned to a primitive or object reference can be assigned to an array element of that type. To assign values to our nums array, we would do it like this. Num sub 0 equals 10. Num sub 1 equals 9. Num sub 2 equals negative 77. Num sub 3 equals 9. Each element of the nums array is simply an int variable that holds an int value. Arrays can contain duplicates, as we see here. The elements located at index 1 and 3 are both assigned the value of 9. The array itself is always an object reference, but in the case of our nums array, it's declared to hold an array of primitive type ints. Arrays can also be initialized at the time of declaration. The initialization is done with curly braces. In this case, int mynums equals, and we open our curly braces and put in our initial values of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. The values to be assigned are a comma-separated list inside the curly braces. Notice that we didn't need to use the new keyword. The compiler understands that we're creating a new array and takes care of it for us. The size of the array is determined by the number of items between the curly braces. In this case, the size is 6. The first element in the mynums array is 2, the second is 4, and so forth up to 12. We can access our array elements and print them out with systemoutPrintLine. Let's use our shortcut, SOUT, and print out a couple of items. We'll print out the first and fifth element of the array. Running the code, we get the values 2 and 12 as we'd expect. When declaring our array earlier, we showed the brackets coming between the type of the array and the array variable name like this. However, it's perfectly valid to see the brackets come in different locations and with different spacing, sometimes right next to the type or the variable name. Don't let the syntax throw you. These are all the same thing and are really a matter of personal style. We've been creating arrays of primitive types so far, so let's create an array with reference variables. We'll keep it simple for now and just use strings. We can initialize our array of strings using the curly bracket syntax. First, we specify the data type, which will be string, then the brackets, wherever you'd like to put them, our array variable name, an equal sign, and in curly braces, we'll enter our pets' names. Strings must be enclosed in double quotes, and we'll need commas between each item. Our pet names will be Gizmo, Peanut, and Fluffy. In our case, our array is a reference, and it refers to an array of references to string objects that contain our pet names. We can print out the values of our pet names using the array index just like we did with the primitive types. System out print line, pet name sub 0. And when we run our code, we get the name of our first pet if we had simply declared an array and initialized it like this. Job names will be a reference to an array of strings, but each element of the string array would be null, represented by the ground symbol in this diagram. Null is the default value of an uninitialized string reference. If we assign names to the elements of the arrays like this, job names sub 0 equal software engineer, job names sub 1 equals AppSec, job names sub 2 equals DevOps engineer, job name sub 3 equals Scrum Master. Now the four array elements are not null, but references to string objects that contain the names of four common job titles in the development world. Arrays are very useful, and we'll come back to them and explore some advanced uses when we cover a few more topics, but for now I want to keep this lesson simple. Thanks for watching, and remember to always begin secure.